Welcome to episode 3 of Conversations with Baba-Maa podcast. Conversations with Baba-Maa was born out of a desire for me to collect parenting stories from my community. That includes my own parents, cousins, uncles and aunts, and anyone who wants to share their stories and challenges about parenting and the values they instill in their children. In episode 3, you will meet my maternal uncle and aunt, Nahid and Mou. You will hear me say Nahid Mama. Mama means maternal uncle, and Mou Mami, where Mami is your mama's wife. And those are honorifics we use in Bangladesh and in other cultures where you call your uncle and aunt something that's relative to their relationship to you. So if I were to talk about my paternal uncle, you would hear me call him Chacha and his wife Chachi. So Nahid and Mou left the United States 15 years ago, and they raised their children in Saudi Arabia, their 2 daughters. And you will hear about their values, their processes as parents, and their learnings as they went through life in the past 15 years. I hope you will enjoy the show, and thank you for watching. When you think about the values that your parents instilled in you, what comes to mind? How did they instill it? How did you instill that in your daughters?
When you're parenting, just listen to your kids, because he always said he was not very close to his dad, so he wanted to change that.
So we enjoyed that for until she was 12, 13, and one day she's like, I have my own world. I don't need you anymore.
All right, Nahid Mama and Mou Mami, thank you so much for joining our podcast. To give you a little bit of background, this podcast is called Conversations with Baba-Maa. And as parental figures in my life, I'm inviting you to the podcast. You're my maternal uncle and aunt, and I would love for you to introduce yourselves.
Mou Mami. So we currently live in Saudi Arabia. We moved 14 years ago from Houston, Texas. We have 2 daughters. Before moving to Houston, I used to live in Bangladesh, where I used to work, and pretty much grew up in Bangladesh, schooling and everything. And then went to Houston, raised a family, and then moved here with a 4-year-old and a 1-month-old here. And then we've been
The
here.
rest is history.
The rest is history. Yes.
It's crazy that they were so young. Mama, how about you?
Okay, so everything she said, plus myself, I'm in oil and gas, living in Saudi like 14 years, she said. I used to be in Houston, before that in Bangladesh, and obviously I'm in as Mama, which is uncle in English, on mother's side.
Yes. So what do you do for a living?
So for me, as I mentioned, I'm doing projects in Saudi Aramco. Been here 14 years.
Crazy again. Like I remember when Sophie was born, that was the year I got married, and we went over and
2 days after she was born. Yeah, I remember
yeah,
you
and
went.
then you guys left soon after that. So as I said, this conversation or this podcast is about parenting and conversations with your parents. So I'd like to go right back to your childhoods and talk to me more about like your meaningful memories and what you remember from your respective childhoods.
So growing up in Bangladesh, it was really wonderful. Big extended family, mom's side and dad's side, lots of cousins. When we grew up there, we were able to go out in the street and play. That is not the situation in Dhaka anymore, but I totally cherish those moments where we had friends in our neighborhood, para friends, and we would meet up every day, bike, play, and go home in the evening, wash up, do our homework, those kind of stuff. That's the most amazing memory I have growing up in Dhaka. It was amazing growing up, because it was a joint family. I lived with my grandparent, my dadu. And when my aunts, my pupi, and my uncles were not married, we all lived together. Eventually, everybody got married, the family got bigger, and we all moved out, but we all lived in the same building in different apartments. So it was still kind of like living together as a big family. So yeah, it was just happy, amazing memories growing up in Dhaka. We had the best of time.
That's awesome. So very different from your situation where you had one sibling. You had lots of cousins.
Lots
Nahid
of cousins.
Mama.
We all grew up like siblings,
Right,
literally.
right. Nahid Mama had lots of siblings. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's hear a little bit from your side. You have 6 siblings total.
Six
And how
siblings
was
total.
that?
Yeah, 6 siblings total. I was the last one, the youngest one. So my upbringing was totally different than my friends that I knew and people around me. I did not have any restriction at all. I did whatever I wanted. So pretty much on my own, watching the grown-ups. But like Mo said, some of the things that we took it for granted now, it seems like it was magical. For example, we didn't have internet, so you go out every afternoon, play with your friends in your neighborhood, and on top of that, I have a lot of good memories.
When you think about the values that your parents instilled in you, what comes to mind? How did they instill it? What are the things that you recall? And then how did you instill that in your daughters?
Honestly, I cannot think of a moment where they sat down and said, "These are the things you have to do." I don't remember anything like that. From my dad, I learned perseverance, grit, never give up, keep going. And from my mother, I guess I learned live with dignity, maintain relationships.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Momami, I'd love to hear about that because your father was a big figure in your life, and he was also a big public figure as well. So I'd love to hear more about your side.
But to me, he was just my dad, who
Right.
was an amazing storyteller. We actually did not know growing up that he was very important. My mom was a discipliner and my dad was a fun dad. So when I had my kids, what I thought about is how did that relation form with my dad? I mean, I was always close to both my parents, but I was a little closer to my dad because I was able to tell him things and I would either get a very positive or a good feedback or no feedback at all, but he will just listen. So the thing that I learned from them is to listen because that's how you build the relationship with your children. Obviously, I was a little bit more scared of my mom than my dad. Uh, she was a discipliner, but both me and I think Shihab, my brother, will also agree that it was just easier to talk to him. That's because he will listen. So from Abu, what I learned is that when you're parenting, just listen to your kids because he always said he was not very close to his dad. So he wanted to change that. He was the eldest in the family. He had a lot of responsibility. So he said, I was never very close to my dad and I want to change it. He actually told us that I want to be close to you. Open up and you let your children open up to you. No judgment when you want to build that relationship. And from my mom, I learned kindness. I actually learned kindness from both of them because I've always said, whenever you're unhappy, look around yourself. Just look around, you will see there's a lot of people who are less fortunate and, just be grateful. I owe my interpersonal skills from my mom. She knows how to navigate through different situations. She knows how to build relationship, maintain it, no matter what, and to deal everything with kindness. That's something I learned from Abu and Ammu.
Like there's the softer side, which you just talked about, Mommy, the kindness and gratitude, which I think are underappreciated skills. I will just call them skills today, and values. And then Naid Mama, you talked about grit and dignity, which are sort of, I won't say polar, like they're like strength. They define strength versus the softness, if you think about it that way, right? Like, but because I know both sets of parents, obviously my grandparents, I know a little bit better than Mommy, your parents. Like I can think about that relationship or who they were. And this is gonna sound really strange because I'm saying it on a recording, but I'm looking at Naid Mama right now. I'm like, I can see Nana right now. Like I can see my grandfather, and it's a little bit eerie because we're also talking about him. So when you think about those things, so listening, gratitude, kindness, living with dignity, and I want to come back to Nanu later on. How are those things playing in Samara and Sophie's lives? Like those are your daughters. Samara's your older daughter. Sophie is your younger, and they're 4 years apart, right? You said. So they're not that far apart, but they're living very different lives right now. So how have you managed to navigate that yourselves?
So we not only see our reflections in our daughters, I also see the reflections of the grandparents as well, which is really eerie, because we have always lived abroad. I can count on my fingers the number of times they have met them. But it's really, really strange, the things that you see, and we see ourselves, and we also see our parents in them. So I don't know. I have no explanation how this happened. Is it through us, or is it genetic? It's just, but it's beautiful. It's wonderful to see that. And they're very different, both my daughters, in personality, in what they value, and how they and their perspective. But it's just a mixture of everything we know. That's the only way I can explain. And what I have noticed is there's a lot to learn from your kids as well. This was not the case when we were growing up. It was, you're always looking up to your parents, and whatever they say, it's written in stone. It's the ultimate word, and you have to go by it. Unlike Nahid, who grew up the youngest son and do whatever he wanted. My parents are pretty liberal, but maybe in my mind, I never thought I could do that. I was the oldest daughter between me and Shihab, and I always thought, oh, I have to go listen to what my parents say all the time. So that was, but I see a lot of what the personality that Nahi talked about, grit and dignity. I see that a lot in Samara. These are very strong in her. It's either this or not, which is amazing, because you need that in your life. It's just hard as a parent right at this point to contain it, because she has to go to school, she has friends, she has a community. On the other side, Sophie, I see a very softer personality, but she's very quiet in her. It's not like she's a pushover. She's pretty determined. She has grit, but she's not very vocal. You will not see it outside, but she does it very quietly. She sets her mind, and she does it very quietly. Between the two of them, I mean, they're both very kind, mashallah, but you will, from her demeanor, you will think Sophie is the kinder one, because she's just softer. Yeah, we see the manifestation in both of them.
Because they inherently have some values that they were born with. They're independent person. So we want to guide them to the one or two that if they use it more, that they will do better. For example, for Samara, like Mo mentioned, more gratitude and kindness will help her kind of fill that gap and become more uniform. And for Sophie, I would say setting boundaries, standing up for herself. So those things will be more important. So every kid is a little bit different. And so we identify the gaps and want to kind of remind them that if you kind of think about these values, life will be much more pleasant and easier and so on. So yeah.
So did you guys sit down and have those conversations? Because Nahid Mama, you said, I don't recall a conversation with my parents saying you have to do this, you have to do that. You just observed your way through how they parented. How have you handled that with your kids?
I'll tell you, there's one thing that I didn't see that I want to do more. For example, my dad was born in 40s or 1937 or something like that. At that time, they didn't have those communication traits to build relationship with the child, so we missed out on that. So that was one thing I made sure that I don't repeat and do lots of communication, spend all my free time with them. But having said that, you have to realize kids at different ages are different. So they'll be easier to communicate, spend time with until 12. Then after that, they have their own mind. They don't want to do that. So you have to kind of adjust. So, they listen to you, they spend time with you, they want to come and talk to you. But there will be a time they have other things in their mind. They're okay without you.
Yeah.
So then it's a challenge to get their attention. So what do we do? Do we have them sit down and talk about values? No. So every chance we get, we interject and say, no, maybe we want to be more grateful for what we have. Maybe we want to be forgiving with this person. Or with Sophie, I'll say, you need to speak up more, the things you do. So every chance we get, we say that. And sometimes I think we overdo it. And they get frustrated. It's like, hey, everything is not about live speech, okay? Just cut it down. So they also recognize we overdo it sometimes. So we have to kind of pull back. It's like, okay, fine. So they're that age. Now they recognize. So I think it's okay to repeat. They are listening. And I do see them taking on some of the things we talked about many years ago. They're doing it. I'll give you one simple example that kids watch. A little bit different example, but it'll get the point across. I use a bag, black bag, to carry all the family passport. And I never told Samara to do that. But when she grew up, she has a black bag. She carries her passport. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, they're watching and they copy you and they do things that you did. So on that note, it's also scary that we're not always perfect people. We have our weaknesses. When we are not being perfect human being, they may copy that as well. So that's also scary.
So, and I just thought of this, Moami, you said your dad was the oldest, and Nana was the oldest too, was he not? Yeah, Nahid Mama?
Yeah. Nana was the oldest, and he had the responsibility to take care of his family.
Yeah.
And it was a huge family. So his responsibility was to make sure his brother and sister are taken care of. Some of them are educated. And in addition to that, he also kind of reached out to my mom's side, made sure her brother and sisters are supported.
So we were talking about how Nana was the oldest and had all the responsibilities, and Momami, you had that same situation with your dad, and he had a lot of siblings, right? His siblings are still around, many of them. But I wonder if there's something between the both grandfathers for Samara that kind of brings it together, because she's also the oldest. And is there something you can think of that you see in her from both of them?
You get the message that you're the eldest, so you have to be a little bit more responsible. So we always hear Samara in her comments, she will say, oh, when Sophie goes to boarding school or when she goes to college, I will do this or I will do that. I never hear Sophie say, oh, when I'm in college, I'll do this for Samara, So I think it's something that gets infused as an older child. And I have that too. I don't know if it's a family expectation or it's something you just watch and learn and come to a conclusion that I have to do the same. So yeah, but she's definitely more ready to take responsibility.
What are some things that you all do as a family that is a meaningful activity to you?
I think when we travel, that is the most enjoyable time we have, because that's when we are together all the time. We're doing things together. That's the best time. So that's why I love traveling, and especially with the kids. My kids are very good travelers, mashallah. I mean, they've been traveling since they were very, very little and never had a bad time or never had a difficult time. Like I said, when they were younger, it was easy to do things together. Let's go to the pool, let's do this. But now they're older, it gets very, very difficult to do things together, even where we're in the same house. So with teenagers, it's really hard. But I think one thing we do when we have at least one meal together, that's when we talk, whatever, sometimes the conversation can get heated, but we're talking, So whenever, we have a dinner or a breakfast on the weekend or something together where we are just talking and, conversing, doing things, listening to each other. So that's a really happy moment when we do that.
Anything you'd add there, Nahid Mama, to that?
No, like she mentioned, I think one thing that we do and enjoy is traveling. And at that time, all the distractions are gone. We all, have our own lives. So all those things, every day we're carrying around in our head. When we're traveling together, all those things are gone. So we're kind of stuck with each other and doing the same things, seeing solving the same problems, enjoying the same things. So at that time, it's uninterrupted and we really come together. And the dinner that we have together, that's also important. And we spend time with our cats. I think that's one common thing that we do. And we share cat videos. So that's another common thing. So lots of cat videos being shared in the house and pictures.
That's a good one. So Samara left home a few years ago, right? So, didn't just leave home, went thousands of miles away from home. And how has it been as parents to see her go at a very early age? And then how has your parenting changed between having the two of them together and then now Sophie around only?
When she left, it was definitely scary. But this is something with her personality. She wanted to go. So we were actually holding her back. So people looking from outside may not know that. They may think we sent her out. That's not the case. So we held her back 1 year. But she was ready to go way before that. But somehow she agreed, and we were happy to have her 1 extra year. But when she left, until then, we had a lot to say. You can do this or cannot do this. But once she was there, she, got her wings and Now she has her own opinion and she wants to do things her way. And we realize from far away with different time zone, we're looking at night and day, we cannot tell her what to do. So we have to kind of accept that she's an independent person. You know, all we can do is guide her. And at that time, she's having new experiences, and we decided we'll take the role of a friend. She can tell us anything. There's nothing she can do that we may not like it, but we'll be with her and we'll go through the problem together. I think we saw her opening up slowly. So now we are taking more of a friend role. We listen more, we say less. And as a parent myself, when they're young, you want your kid to be a president. But as they grow older, you try to adjust that and you learn every kid is different. Be what you want to be. We're here to support you as long as you're safe. You're a good human being and being productive. We have a good family bonding. We're there for each other. I think that's all I can ask for. And on Sophie's side, when Samara was gone, this kind of freed us up to give Sophie 100% of our attention. So we enjoyed that until she was 12, 13. And one day she's like, I have my own world. I don't need you anymore. I actually have to find things to do because now she's busy with her things. So that was an adjustment. But Sophie is, after Samara is gone, it's allowing Sophie to become her own. So, but now she's blossoming into her own person and trying to find her own things she likes, doesn't like. But still, I do see trying to do similar things that Samara does. I encourage her to be her own. I think that's happening slowly.
You want to add anything, Mommy?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very new season of parenting, like I said, I think having that, build that trust when she was younger, that we will listen and she can tell us anything, even if it's a mistake, which actually helps when they're talking to you about everything and you're not judging, just listening. It actually helps them to own their mistakes. Then you can have a very honest conversation with them that, hey, this is where you went wrong. Just because I'm supporting doesn't mean I'm enabling it. You have to find that balance. You have to find that conversation because every child is different. But so building that relationship early on. I mean, yeah, when she was just turned a teenager, before she left, there was a time when, it happens to every teenager. They're going through their mind is occupied with so much that, and they may not open up to you. But when that thing shifted, when she moved to even, yes, she was becoming more independent, but I think the conversations just got a lot more deeper and we are listening more. We had to change our conversation, take on a more of a role of a confidant than a parent. So hoping that, as she grows and going into college, that will blossom into something more meaningful and something more substantial. Yeah, it was hard. The first year was very hard. We all grew as a family, from our own spaces, but we definitely see the results of that growth now. By the time they are 14, 15, and when you know that your child is going to go to boarding school, you want to make sure that they have learned those things. They are able to, take charge of the situation. And I think Samara was able to do all this. I mean, it was a very different scenario when she went to boarding school, like nothing she has seen before. But I think some of those helped her along the way.
Yeah, and they're growing up in a very different generation than you are, or even for myself, right? So Nahid, Mama, maybe just before I go to my quick fire questions, you left when you were 18, you left Bangladesh and went like thousands of miles away as well to come to America for your education. When you think about your experience back then versus Samara's experience going to high school, right? She wasn't going to college. She's going to high school in America. What are some differences or similarities that you see?
Yeah, I think you touched on it because I went to university, but around where she's now at this age, but not when we sent her. So I had an advantage of a few years, and which makes a difference, by the way. So at this age, 1, 2 years makes a big difference. So when I arrived, 18, 19, I was a little bit older than Samara when she went. Honestly, in Bangladesh, we were very, very mature. So I've been driving since I was in 8th grade, doing things by myself, since as long as I can remember. I was very independent. So when I went there, I felt like an adult. I knew what I was doing. I had a plan. I executed the plan. But obviously, Samara, they're more. They came from more protected home, you know. So I was ready to take on, but it seems like they struggled through things, for example, friendship. Those were never issues for us, or managing money, or understanding what can be done, cannot be done. But it seems like they're still a little bit immature than where I was. I don't know if that helps your answer. So I'm surprised that why we were that mature. Maybe I was 2 years older. She left, and in Bangladesh, it makes you a little bit more tougher and more street smart.
Yeah, and you had to live within more limited means in Bangladesh than they did in the US, right? Like you've had expansive lives. You had to think about, oh, I need to save my money when I go to college. And that kind of thing was probably already in your head because,
Right.
you were thinking about that before you even left.
Yeah, so I can tell you, they don't even think about money these days. They have no idea where it comes from. So all those things, they're still not ingrained. So I'm surprised that I was not like that. So maybe they're more entitled, like she said, which we're trying to change actively, but it's not easy.
But
That's
those 2 years, I think those 2 years make a big difference in
it does.
the age
So
and
we can tell you this. The Samara today is different than the Samara who left on 10th grade. So she's much more calmer. She's more like an adult. So she's doing more things independently. But still, we see those childish things still. I'll give you one example. I don't know if should say it here. Don't use the debit card everywhere. Please be careful. Then we see it's used in Xbox without our knowledge. And then I have to change the whole bank account because there's a fraud warrant. So I think I mentioned don't use it like 20 times and still have it. So I guess kids are different. They have other things they're thinking about.
Yeah, it's just from the sense of entitlement they have. We never had parents never gave us credit card, debit card, access to. We didn't have Amazon Prime account growing up, or Netflix account, or Xbox, and all that. So yes, it's a very different time. So the troubles are different. The problems are different from what our problem was. Oh, I broke my bicycle. How do I tell my dad? And there's a lot of maturity I see in Samara that I didn't have when I was growing up. There's a lot of immaturity, also a lot of I wouldn't use the word not knowing, not in touch with reality, what's out there from their lifestyle, from the generation or the place they're at. So I'm hoping when she goes to college, she earns her own money, she has to rent her own place, pay that rent, buy her own food, find a job, all that in the next 4 years, she'll get more mature, there'll be more growth in her, and we'll sort of back out.
But I just want to kind of flip it a little bit. There are things they know and understand that I didn't at that age.
Right.
So it's not like that, we were more wiser than her. It's just a different generation. Gen Zs, I guess. Maria is Gen Z.
She's a Gen Z.
So her creativity and understanding of the world and information they have, we just didn't have those at that time. So even Sophie, she knows things that at her age I didn't know.
Right.
So they have more information, but maturity wise, I think they're still.
So, and they're both digital natives, right? Like you said, you didn't have Amazon Prime and all this, but they grew up with that kind of thing. Like that's been around their entire lives, which we are yet to see the impact of that on the world. So
information at your fingertips, they grew up with that.
Yeah.
And that has changed the generation, the way they think, what they know is much more than what we did at my age.
Yep.
When I was there.
All right.
No,
So go ahead.
Self-aware. They when it comes to self-awareness, I think they're a lot more mature than where we were at that age. That's for sure.
You're just playing on the streets, weren't you?
We're just
All right. So it's now time for some quick fire questions I like to ask our podcast guests. They don't have to be one-word answers. They can be full sentences, and you can elaborate a little bit. But what is your favorite parenting tip? One or two each.
I guess the parenting tip changes according to the age. So if somebody is 10-year-old, they'll give a different, but where my kids right now at 14 and 17, the parenting tips I would say is if they come to you to talk to you, stop everything else, and listen to them. Just drop it. Don't be on your phone, nothing. Just stop it because they don't come to you often anymore. So when you go to them, they don't have time for you. But when they come to you, give them your 100%, listen to them, and come to their level. They create about that animation. They care about this show or whatever they want to talk about. That's all you have to talk about. You cannot talk about other things. So tip is come to their level, listen to them, and if they come to you, drop everything else, give them your 100%.
I have two tips for you. One is whenever you see them, get excited. Like they walk in, hey, where have you been? Or hey, you walk, just be excited every time you see them. And my second tip is embrace their world. Find out what they're doing, what they're listening to, what their interests are. If they're talking about a music or an art or a movie, go and do a little research, read their books so that you can engage in conversation with them because then the generation gap, there will be, they will call you out for being mommy or dumb or you don't know this, but it'll be less. You can have more impactful conversation with them.
Yeah, I fake it to join in, but they catch it all the time. So.
Those are great tips. Thank you. So one thing, Nahid Mama, you said is your tips change as the kids' ages change or as they grow. I think values change over time, right? You kind of reevaluate what you value as you grow as well. So for the two of you and the stage of your lives, what are the values that currently define your lives?
So at this age, like you said, your values change. My values at 2030s is different than at my age now. I was about to say my age and I stopped myself. Okay. So anyway, at this age, faith is top. So faith drives the decision. Faith drives who you are and what you want to be, and you're not there yet. Thankfulness, gratitude. So that's what is priority for me at this age.
What about you, Mommy?
And one more is keeping the big picture. I actually have done that all the time. Always keep the big picture in mind. What's going on? Even the grandeur of, where are you? Life is short. All those things you have to keep in mind, not just what's going on today. So keep the big picture in mind. That keeps things in perspective.
Faith, definitely. Growing up, other things used to be important, but I think when I became a parent, that's when everything kind of shifted, and I realized that things are not in my control. Actually, there's something bigger out there, and you have to trust for that bigger power to guide you. You have to keep your eyes and ears open for the signs. So that's really important. Another tip would be to sleep, get enough sleep. As you grow
Sleep
older.
becomes the value, actually. Like even like I feel like I've not slept in 4 years because Reese just does not sleep well.
Exactly. So when you get to my age, you realize that sleeping well becomes a value.
That's awesome. So for my final question, and then I'll ask a wrap up, is what one thing do you want your daughters to remember about you once you're gone? Well, Mommy, we can start with you.
That we laughed together a lot. That Mommy was funny.
You are pretty funny.
So I want them to know that they are center of my life. They mean everything to me. Nothing is more important than them. I live for them. They're my purpose. I love them very much.
Oh, that's nice. Anything that you would like to close with today that we haven't talked about?
I thought about talking about this moment because this was a very defining moment in my parenting, Samara, because she's my firstborn. I actually got the best tip about parenting from Samara. It's a long story, but I'm going to make it really short. So I think she was 6 years old, and she and her play date, they were having some issues. They were getting into a little fight. And when the mom came, picked her up, they were both telling her what happened and that they were not getting along. And when the mom was leaving, she kind of, in a very snide way, commented that it was Samara's fault. And me being the Desi mom I'm like, oh, Samara, you really shouldn't have done this. I'll have a word with her. You shouldn't have done that. And they left. And I see Samara very sad. I'm like, Samara, what happened? She said, you know what, Mom? For once, you could have supported me. you don't even know the whole story. And I sat there and I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? That was actually my pet peeve growing up with my mom, that, you know how these Bangladeshi moms are. Somebody complains, it's always your child's fault. They will never listen to you. You'll come home and hear a lecture and they never heard your side of the story. You never feel that you've been heard, right? And I repeated that with my daughter, and I completely changed my conversation and my way of dealing with things with her from that moment. She actually taught me how to do this. So support your child does not mean you're going to enable. When you are supporting them, even when they're making a mistake, when they're doing something wrong, like I said, it helps them to own their problems. And you ask them to find the solution. How would you fix it? So yeah, that would be my
And
parting.
unconditionally so, right? Like you don't have to be
Yes.
permissive,
No.
but have the unconditional support there, which is what 6-year-old Samara was asking about. Yeah. What about you, Nahid? Anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to add?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think how to articulate it. So this is something that I've learned. I want to pass down to your audience. I don't know. Let me try. So parents, what I've learned is your child, whether you're a baby, toddler, primary school, middle school, and so on, this kid that you have at every phase, let's say you're all flustered as a toddler, giving you a hard time, but that toddler will be gone. Not just that personality, that person, the way they look, that boy will be gone, or that girl will be gone, that toddler will be gone, and will be replaced with, the next one. And that'll be there for a few years, they'll be gone. Then, obviously, the teenager comes. Then you look back at the old pictures and videos, like, I wish I could go back in time and meet that little girl again. And I can never do that. Keep that in mind. What life challenges comes in, we all get frustrated. That little boy or girl will be gone. That face will be gone. That little hands will be gone. And be replaced by another one that's different. So as if the other one is not there anymore. Where did the other one go? And it'll be only that little kid will only live in your videos and pictures. And you cannot, no matter what you do, you cannot ever go back to that moment, to that child again. So just keep that in mind, keep that perspective. So enjoy every phase, because that's only for a little bit.
Even the hard ones, because the phases are sometimes very difficult.
You think it's hard, and when you look back, you're like, oh, those days were the most sweetest days, most happiest days of my life. And you don't realize it until it's gone. And I realized it, by the time Samara was growing up, I realized it. So for Sophie, when I was having those moments, I knew this is that moment. I knew that. So outside playing, talking to her, or reading a book, or spending time with her, I was like, this is that moment. It will never come again. So I was very, very conscious all the way up to 12. Now she hardly has any time for me. It's a different Sophie. But I know that I took advantage of every moment.
The most ordinary moment is actually the most precious, because that moment will not come back. Probably that's the last time you've ever picked her up, or the last time he sat on your lap, or you brushed his teeth, stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a last time for each of those activities that you never do again. That's very, very sad, and parents need to keep that in mind.
Well, thank you both for joining me today. We don't get to have this kind of conversations all the time. When we're with family, we're with 10 other people. So I appreciate you taking the time today. And what I will just close with saying is, I've seen the transformation in Samara, right? Like I began when we talked about the conversation. So Samara was 4 years old when you guys left. So I remember that Samara, and now I see her. And even in the past couple of years, that she's kind of grown into a different person, right? So that she's changing and Sophie's changing, and they're both for my audience, they're both brilliant artists, and I envy all of their skills, because I will never be an artist. But it's nice to look to the younger generation. They're my first cousins, and see so much brilliance and so much talent and so much, so different from me, right? So different from how each of us grew up. So I appreciate the time, and thank you for raising your daughters. And we will stop the recording here and say goodbye.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.